All right, let's do this thing. A Friday Freak Show edition. You guys are getting more and more used to that. Matt Robinson with you in the TCA studio in beautiful Bytown, Canada. We're on social media at Tall Can Audio. We want to hear from you there. We'd love to interact. And make sure you are subscribed to the show wherever you're hearing us right now. It is just me today. And look, to pull the curtain back, I am just minutes away from heading out of town at the time that this is getting posted. And so the Monday morning show has already been recorded. Normally, that's a newsy show. Whatever's going on that weekend, that week, and is topical for a Monday morning, we'll hit it there. I won't be back on time on Sunday night to make that happen, but we didn't want to leave you hanging on Monday morning, so we have pre-recorded something that will drop then, Rob and myself. That will be all hockey, all the time, and you'll get that. But it does mean there was going to be a lengthy break in between times where we were talking about current news. And that dates all the way back to this past Monday's show when Michaela Schreider co-hosted with me. And there was lots to talk about there. If you missed it, check it out wherever you're hearing me right now or at tallcanaudio.com. And then on Wednesday, we had Julian McKenzie. And that was something that had also been recorded like a week ago. And it was still topical. We were chatting about his book and Sen's training camp and, you know, guys to keep an eye on. But we've seen some things. We've seen some news this week. Not all of it good. And, you know, when factoring in that the thing you're going to hear on Monday morning also isn't newsy, it felt like we needed to check in here and at least do something to talk about some of the news that's broken here over the last little bit. I'm saying news too often. You guys know this happens to me when I'm doing shows on my own. So we're going to touch on a few things. We're not going to go in depth on any of them, but I am going to weigh in because I know you want to hear. You want to know what I think, right? That's very important. So we're going to do that here. Rob will be here Monday. We've got a bunch of really good stuff lined up for next week after that when I am back in town, but just thought we'd get one more show out the door here this week. As far as the beer goes, for anybody who's here specifically for that, you got your sound effect. Everybody already knows most of the time if it's just me and we're just dropping in like this. Octopus Wants to Fight from Great Lakes Brewing Company. And it feels appropriate for this one because there's like 8 different things to talk about. See what I did there? This might be a little bit of a freak show in terms of bouncing around a little bit. I want to talk about something that went on with the Vegas Golden Knights this week. I want to talk about the CFL rule changes. I want to talk about the Blue Jays releasing Alek Manoah. But at the time that I'm having this conversation, we have not yet seen the results from the Thursday Toronto Blue Jays game. Maybe I'll come back in here after the game. Maybe this show doesn't drop first thing Friday morning. Maybe I'll come in and record any thoughts, at the conclusion of the Red Sox series, which so far has been a disaster, on Friday and get this out a little later in the day. We'll see. So just bear with me if this bounces around a little bit, if we touch on Manoah and the Blue Jays and then something else and then come back to actual Blue Jays results later. We're doing our best here on a Friday. It's Mail It In Friday, I believe our friends on TSN 1050 call it. And I have started that early at, 6:40 p.m. on Thursday evening. So let's do the CFL thing first, because quite frankly, the CFL has been underserved on this show, I don't know, for a few weeks now at least, and I'm beaten down on the Red Blacks. And so I don't care to talk about it. Hey, they lost again. Like, I'm trying not to use the word news again. It's not news that the Red Blacks keep finding new and exciting ways to lose football games. What did make news this week was the CFL announcing some rule changes. And as far as I can tell, we'll see. I'm not going to judge any of them too harshly until I actually see what they look like in place, but I do have some opinions. But so far, the only thing that's been accomplished is turning the CFL fan base on each other. There is nothing but, I wish they hadn't done that. It further Americanizes the game, or, this is not the way I want to see the CFL proceed, or this is exactly what they need to do. It's going to modernize the game. It's going to get everybody excited, and everyone will sell tickets, and everyone will make millions, and this and that. This is exactly what you have to do. And almost nothing in between. And so you've just got what is already a reasonably small fan base in the CFL. It's a committed fan base, and it's a dedicated fan base. But compared to other leagues in other sports, this is a small country population-wise, and you don't have a ton of hardcores. You don't have enough hardcores on the CFL to split and conquer, to divide and conquer. And yet that's exactly what appears to have been the immediate fallout. It's just everybody shitting on everybody else. Quote tweets all over the place. Here's why you're an idiot and I'm correct. I'm a genius. There has to be some room for some nuance. When you announce big changes to long-standing positions across the league, you better believe there's going to be passionate pushback, if nothing else. And there was. And look, if you're one of those people who thinks everything that was announced this week was great, that's fine. You're entitled to that opinion, and you may yet turn out to be right. We don't know if you're right yet. We haven't seen any of these rules put in place yet, but you may turn out to be right. But it is irrational to have expected everyone to be over the moon about this and to spend the rest of your week dunking on them online when people were upset. Was silly. I don't know what else to call it. It's silly. Okay? So let me tell you my sort of opinion on how this came down. I think I can get on side with moving the goalposts to the back of the end zone. I didn't think it was the end of the world that it was presented as, and like so many since the announcement have presented it as. It's not like you were watching games every week and seeing repeated passes at the goal line being knocked down by the uprights. I'm not going to be disingenuous about that. I do understand that part of the reason you didn't see a whole bunch of passes being knocked down or hitting the uprights was because you fired most passes out to the side. This will, unquestionably, open up more options inside. Quarterbacks won't be as worried about hitting the uprights. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as the league was making it. But I think this is the one that upsets me the least. You put it at the back of the end zone, and it'll be fine. The Rouge. Look, the Rouge is cute. It's part of our game. We all know when we watch the CFL, it's a little silly. And if your team is tied with some other team late and they kick a punt through your end zone or miss a field goal and it bounces out and you lose by 1 point based on the Rouge, that's the moment where you go, this is stupid. Our thing that we've done forever is stupid. I hate it. But next week, as long as you're not a Red Blacks fan, like me, maybe your team will win a game based on the Rouge and kicking it through the end zone somewhere. So I'm not a traditionalist in the sense that like nothing can be allowed to change. But there are certain things that are just like, we've always done it this way. And again, that's not a good enough reason to not talk about changing it. But it was fine. It was not the we weren't seeing multiple games ended every week by a kick through the end zone. I think this is a solution without a problem. But again, this isn't the end of the world to me. I can get on side with this. I can live with this. Again, I wouldn't have done it, but it's fine. Talking about being a traditionalist, talking about nothing's ever allowed to change. We can go back just a couple of years when they implemented all the big rule changes in MLB, and that was debated ad nauseum on this show. And I was actually more on side with implementing the pitch clock, which was the bigger change. This is a fundamental change to the game. But to me, okay, let's go ahead. Let's do that. I hated that you took away the shift by the defense. And it's not because I love the shift. Like, there's nothing more frustrating than when you have a pull-heavy guy at the plate and you've got like 4 defenders standing right where you know he's about to ground into. But one is a rule change, and one is banning something like that was coaching. One was banning strategy. And I was okay with the one that was a change in the rules, right? That was the pitch clock. Okay, we need to speed this game up to get people's attention. I think this will work. We promise you, games are not going to take 4 hours and 10 minutes anymore. That had to happen, no problem. But the shift, that's strategy. That's coaching. That's team approach. Baseball doesn't need to have their hands in that. I didn't like that. So I'm willing to, and I just use it as an example to suggest that we all have our own biases and approach, and sometimes you look at it in a way that maybe would surprise people. So the Rouge thing, fine. The uprights, fine. I actually like the changing of the clock to 35 seconds no matter what. I do think there are moments in the CFL, especially depending on what stadium you're in, who's at home, who's at away, where things were getting a little out of hand. So that's actually probably a pretty good one. I'm not even saying I'm fine with that one. I think I like that one. Guys, I know it's irrational. Fuck off with the field thing. I don't like it. Don't touch the field. So we have shortened the end zones from being 20 yards to 15 yards because, oh no, it doesn't fit properly in Montreal or maybe in America. We'll get to that. The field is no longer 110 yards long. It's now 100 yards long because I guess you're now always closer to somebody's end zone. We're artificially going to inflate scoring that way. Like, I understand the logic there. Instead of being 50 yards away from the end zone when I caught that punt, I'm now 40 yards away because there are 10 yards missing in the middle. Does that mean anybody's going to throw any more often? Does that mean anybody's going to catch any more often? Does that mean any more big plays are coming? I'm far from sold on that. They left the width of the field the same, and that's good. But to me, the field one, it really bugs me because that one feels like, and go ahead, I know I'm going to be buried just like anyone else who has voiced any concern about this thing online. This is a step towards Americanization. Now, maybe you're one of those people who says, yeah, but in a good way. We can now fit our field into more American stadiums, and we could expand to... I don't think that's what this is. I don't think there's any plans to expand to St. Louis. St. Louis is the city everyone always mentions. They did that thing that one time and drew really well. Yeah, great. Don't touch the size of the field. Don't touch the downs. That's CFL football. And it bugs me. It seemed to me, because they're not ever going to say we're trying to set ourselves up to be more of an NFL minor league. They're not ever going to say we'd like to be able to go take more home games away. Looking at you, Toronto, because it's going to be you next year. Maybe, in preparation for expansion, we'll go down, we'll play a game in Baltimore, we'll play a game in Vegas, we'll play a game in wherever the hell it was in Mississippi or something that had a team. No. I don't like that one because as paranoid as it may sound, it feels like this is that one thing that will allow us to fit a little more comfortably into the way the Americans do it. And I know what that sounds like. I've seen everybody railing against it online and saying how stupid that is. It's not stupid. It's a reasonable concern. Benches on opposite sides, great. The goalposts, great. The Rouge, whatever. The end zones is sure, I don't know, 15 yards instead of 20. But don't fuck with the dimensions of the gameplay surface. That bugged me. We play on 110 by 65. That's the way the game goes. Now it's 100 by 65. In 5 years, CFL is not expanding into America, so that's not what this was about. At least not successfully. They may try it again. It'll go exactly as well as it did the first time. This one bugged me. That is a staple. This is a part of Canadian football. The size of the field. So I didn't like it, as you can tell. On everything else, I'm somewhere on the spectrum between indifferent to, yeah, it's fine. Which I guess are basically the same thing. So it's a small spectrum for me. But don't fuck with my field. I know I said off the top, we don't know yet what's happened during the Thursday game, at least as I'm sitting here right this moment, against the Red Sox as they wrap up a 3-gamer that has been a disaster thus far. They've lost the first 2. Max Scherzer getting smacked around in the first inning for the second game in a row. Look, I may circle back on the Jays, as I said, once we have a result on that game. But they did announce this week they have DFA'd Alek Manoah. And I think a lot of people were caught off guard. He's sort of been out of sight, out of mind here for, well, basically 18 months, right? He's been doing the rehab from Tommy John. He has been back pitching. He'd been working his way up through the minors, which is sort of the protocol when you go through a surgery like that. And it hadn't, for the most part, been going all that well. And the Jays had actually extended his rehab 3 different times. You're allowed to keep tacking on 10-day stints in the minor leagues before calling him up, and the Blue Jays had gone ahead and done that. But then out of nowhere this week, they just announced, yeah, we're cutting you loose, man. And there's a bunch of things that go into this. When you come back from Tommy John, and we've talked about this ever since the Jays acquired Shane Bieber from Cleveland at the trade deadline, who was also coming off the exact same surgery. He was a little further ahead, and he had a setback of his own, but same surgery. And the story has always sort of been on Tommy John, 2 factors. You sort of, if you come back mid-season, you'll be fine, but you won't really feel like yourself until you've had a full off-season to go and train and ramp up, and then come back that next year. The other point being, your velocity will come back, sometimes even a little better than it was, long before your control. You may throw it in there with a pile of heat, but you have no idea where it's going. That's what's made Shane Bieber so interesting. Is a lot of you will remember that first start he made coming back against the Marlins. Man, dead-eye Dick, like right in there, picking corners, no problem, like he hadn't missed a beat. That's unusual. He had his velocity and his control right away. Now, he's been a little up and down since then, but he's been largely fine to the point where he's absolutely getting a playoff start for the Blue Jays. As I sit here right now, I don't know whether that'll be in the wild card or the division series. That's a whole other thing. Manoah was not having either one. His command hadn't returned. And again, it's not supposed to, right? It's supposed to be the thing that returns last. But the velo, it was not even close. They're supposed to get back to that reasonably fast. Sometimes it even ticks up. This guy was not hitting his 95, his 95 and a half, his 96. He was averaging out through the last couple starts at under 91. That's scary if you're worried about whether or not this guy's going to be part of your future. And in his last couple starts, like in the last one specifically, he was throwing almost all changeups. Something was off, and that's not what they want from him. When the Jays are leaving him in the minors saying, figure it out, we know it's tough. Take your time. You'll get there. In response, having been given that trust, you need to throw the fuck out of that fastball until it starts to creep up from 90.5. Not just go away from it because some AAA guy's hitting it. That's what's supposed to happen down here. That guy's fighting for his AAA playoff life. You're just here trying to get yourself back to the majors. You can't care about the result. I need you to throw that fastball a lot and get it going again. And he was more interested in throwing the slider, throwing the changeup, and just trying to compete at that level. And the Jays obviously got pretty fed up. Whether it was ever going to rebound from 90.5 back up to 96 remains to be seen. And you will see it. Someone will pick him up. He'll be on someone's roster next year. But they have removed him from their roster, and part of that is about what's going to happen this fall and having room for another guy on the roster to do that. If, like, we're sitting here right now, the day after they cut Alek Manoah loose, we hear that Jose Barrios, who has already been removed from the rotation, but he's now hitting the IL with something going on with the elbow. Chris Bassett is on the IL. That might be, hey man, just go rest up for the playoffs, but maybe there's something real going on there. Things are starting to get thin in a hurry when Max Scherzer is getting hit around. So sometimes the argument becomes, maybe you just keep Manoah and you decide over the winter, we're just not going to tender that guy. You know, for $2.5 million, they could have kept him around, gone to arbitration, and kicked it down the road a year. But he's taking up a roster spot. So the decision becomes, do we think we're going to use him next month? And then we'll make that decision later, right? Like, as our pitching staff is getting more and more beat up, we might need him, and we'll just make that decision later. Or, clearly, they've decided, yeah, we don't trust you. We aren't going to use you. We would rather give that roster spot to Easton Lucas. Or what is it, Justin Gruel? Like, this is how far he's fallen off. And I think, and this was brought up quite reasonably on the At the Letters podcast with Ben Nicholson-Smith and Arden Zwelling. If he was averaging more than 90.5 miles an hour on a fastball and he was throwing it regularly, maybe you have a conversation about, yeah, just keep him. If we're going to go deep in the playoffs, we may need him. And we can still cut him over the winter if we want to. Or we can now give him that entire winter to see if he builds back up. I did mention one of the common trains of thought coming out of Tommy John is that, you know, you're going to struggle through the rest of the whatever season you come back in. You'll need that whole off season and then be back to normal kind of later in the next season. The Jays looked at all of that and said, nope, not throwing the fastball. The velocity's way down. The command isn't there. We don't care what might happen over the winter. We need a spot right now, and we're going to take, like I said, Easton Lucas. Obviously is a name they have factored in ahead of him. Bowden Francis. Remember that guy? We're keeping him around. They just decided we're not doing it. And it's really jarring for us as fans. We're like, this fucking guy started a playoff game. This guy was a top 3 Cy Young vote getter. This guy played in the 2022 All-Star game. That was 3 full seasons ago. That's a long time in baseball. Like, there was a lot of names in that 2022 All-Star game that are not All-Stars anymore. Like Ty France, who's on your roster right now. He's hurt. He was a throw-in as part of the Varland trade. He was like, yeah, fine, I'll take him, whatever. Nobody wanted him. He was in the same All-Star game that Alek Manoah was in. It's a long time. So it kind of sucks to see him go because he sort of felt like the one thing that Atkins, Shapiro management group on the pitching side could hang their hat on. That one prospect who had made their way up, got the fans excited, got fans on his side, All-Star, Cy Young votes, all of it. And then it just fell apart and it never came back. And then coming off the surgery, he doesn't look good. He doesn't look like he's going to get back there. But maybe he does go have that winter, gets picked up by somebody else who's not going to put a whole lot of pressure on him. And we'll see. But the Jays, when you look at some of the pitching options that they have chosen ahead of him for a potential playoff run, and that's with Barrios now being put on the IL, man, it's They have no confidence. They've told you everything you need to know about what they thought about whether he could help this October, and they flushed him before we even got there. Last thing for now, as I said, bit of a freak show. There may be something tagged on to the end here a little bit. I want to talk about what went on this week around the Athletics reporting on the 5 Hockey Canada players who were found not guilty this summer, and their potential returns to the National Hockey League. Mark Lazarus, very well-respected journalist writing for The Athletic, he wanted to do a story on what's it going to look like when these guys try to re-enter NHL locker rooms. So he traveled to both Carolina and Vegas, because right now those are the 2 teams that most insiders are tying to these guys. The Sens announced a week and a half ago now that Alex Formenton will not be back with them. There was some rumors that Dylan Dubé had been tied to the Leafs. Brad Treliving came out and said, we haven't talked about that at this point. So for now, there's some cold water being poured on that. But Mikey McLeod and Carter Hart are the 2 names that everyone is hearing a lot about. Both of them at different times have been tied to Carolina, and Carter Hart specifically has been also tied to Vegas. So Mark Lazarus decides, I'm going to go down, I'm going to talk to those 2 teams and see what's involved with bringing a guy like that in. What does it do to your locker room? What due diligence do you have to do? So he goes to Carolina. He speaks to head coach Rod Brindamore. And look, we've done the guilty, not guilty, what they did, what they didn't do thing. I have no interest in relitigating that right now. You all know, if you've been listening to this show, how I feel about these guys. I just want to talk about the story and what each of these teams said. So Rod Brindamore says, as the head coach of the Hurricanes, this, first of all, this is the first I'm hearing about this. That's a decision made by management in terms of who they sign. But if you've been found not guilty and management decides you're going to be on our roster, I will welcome you into this locker room. Jordan Staal is the captain of the Hurricanes, and he said the same thing. Now, Jordan Staal has been through his own legal battles. Now, his were when he was 18 years old, although I guess so was this. He said the same thing. Different guys have different situations, different pasts. If the league says you can play, we would welcome you into this room and hope that you are turning over a new leaf and all these sorts of things. Taylor Hall had also commented on this, saying, there's been lots of guys that I had heard negative things about come into a locker room, and I kind of, he seems like a good guy. And lots of guys that you hear nothing but great things about come into your locker room, and you're like, seriously, this fucking guy? We all like this guy, really? So I do get that. These are locker room dynamics. It is what it is. The point being, for the purposes of this conversation, Carolina let the Athletics speak to their head coach, their captain, another player who's a veteran in Taylor Hall, and write the story. And this is without them having signed anybody. Now it's off to Vegas. The Athletic requests to speak to their head coach, Bruce Cassidy. That permission is denied. Later on, it is reported that it's because this reporter, again, Mark Lazarus, it comes out afterwards, and most people know it is, but Jesse Granger writes for The Athletic covering the Golden Knights. So they don't mention in the write-up in The Athletic which reporter it was, but Jesse Granger would have some different relationships, different permissions to go ahead with whatever story he might be doing, as opposed to Mark Lazarus, who typically is based out of Chicago. So it was left somewhat ambiguous, is my point, and Mark does come out on Twitter later on and say, no, it was me. I was the one down there doing this story and asked for permission and got it. He has a league-wide press credential. He is that respected in the league. He goes and he covers sometimes bigger national stories instead of just Blackhawks stuff. So Bruce Cassidy is not permitted to speak to him, or vice versa, depending on your perspective. He's not permitted to speak to Bruce Cassidy, the head coach of the Golden Knights. And they say it's because you ambushed Noah Hannafin. Now, keep in mind, Mark is a guy who's been doing this a long time in many locker rooms across the league. He knows how to do the job. And Noah Hannafin, I guess, was asked about it, didn't love being asked the question. All of a sudden, the Vegas Golden Knights decide, yeah, we're shutting down your interview with Bruce Cassidy. Oh, and also, your credential to cover the game tonight is being revoked. You're not welcome in the building today. And if this is your position, like we saw the two ways of handling this, whether you agree or not with these guys being allowed back in the league, Carolina said, we understand if we're doing this, it comes with some questions. It comes with some responsibility. We know what we're getting into. Vegas went, yeah. Get away from our guys. Don't ask us hard questions. As has been pointed out on Twitter, you can see why Mitch Marner might feel really happy to be in an organization like that. And these are the guys that get credit for being cutthroat, for being ruthless. We win a cup, we toss away Riley Smith right away because you can't help us anymore. We cut away Marc-Andre Fleury, the staple of our expansion year, that, our big superstar free agent who's, going to put us on the map. We cut him loose when it served us right. Now somebody wants to ask you a tough question and you tell them to fuck off? Fuck you. Just brutal. I cannot believe. And again, this isn't some dick like me from TCA walking in for the first time ever and shoving a microphone in somebody's face and saying, tell me why it's okay for Carter Hart to be there. The questions are, what does it do to a locker room? How will guys respond? These are reasonable questions if this is something you're thinking about doing. And if we're going to give the Vegas Golden Knights credit for being cutthroat in terms of saving their salary cap, cutting guys loose when it's time, then we need to hold them to the same account when they make a decision that obviously the world's going to care about. You have to know. Carolina knows if we're doing this, we're going to take some blowback and we will endure it as a team. Vegas is saying, don't criticize us. Don't talk to us. Don't ask us questions. Garbage, man. Again, it's not just some nobody off the street. This is one of the most respected writers around the NHL, just doing a national story, doing his research, actually coming to talk to you and your organization instead of flaming you from afar like I'm happy to do right now. Stepping up face-to-face in your building saying, we hear you're talking about this. Can we ask you some questions? No. Garbage. Getting up oddly worked up again. This seems to happen every time we do one of these. It's just me and you. We're just having a conversation. I got all fired up. If the Vegas Golden Knights are supposed to be the big, tough pillar of what it means to be a top organization, then maybe you can't be afraid of a question. And even if you do shut down a line of questioning, you can't take away the credential of the guy and bar him from your preseason game that night. You pansy motherfuckers. Just loser energy. I hope Mitch helps you crash and burn in the playoffs this year. Don't worry, he knows the way.
Oh, yes, we won! We won! Unfortunately, since I bet on the other team, we won't be going for pizza.
All right, we jump back in to put a tail end on this, as I suggested. Thought it might happen on Friday morning, but I'm kind of grumpy in the morning. I didn't want to risk not feeling like it, so we'll do it right now. It is just after 10. Suddenly a little grumpy here now, too. It is bedtime. Let's get into it. The Jays finally take one off the Red Sox this week, putting an end to what had been an abysmal run here, where they had lost, 4 or 5, 5 or 6, and not just lost, they were getting knocked around. I guess you'd make an exception for, obviously, the Sunday game against Kansas City, where they put up 8, but the 4 games before that were no good. Gosman on Tuesday, he was fine. He wasn't the problem. The offense, quite honestly, has been the problem. So Gausman was good. He wasn't great. Scherzer gave up 3 in the first inning. Again, in his start on Wednesday. I don't know. I think some of you will probably be with me on this. I'd seen enough after the end of that first inning. He settled down. He did give up another bomb later on. But as I mentioned earlier on in the show, when talking about the fact that they had let Manoah go, you're starting to run out of options. Now Barrios is down. Varlin started on Thursday. He was good. Lauer put in a few innings for you. He was good, but you're running out of options to start for you here. And we're going to enter the weekend with 3 games to go. You're hosting Tampa. The Yankees are playing Baltimore, and you're tied. Now the tie goes to you. The Jays have the tiebreaker based on the fact that they have just kicked the piss out of the Yankees all year long. So if you match what the Yankees do or beat them, obviously, the rest of the way, you will win the division. So, if you sweep, the Yankees cannot pass you. If you take 2 out of 3, the Yankees have to sweep. If you take 1 out of 3, the Yankees have to have 2 out of 3. You understand what 1-game differences mean. But I'm sitting here now, and this rotation that has sort of been the strength, even when it hasn't been great, for the Blue Jays, has still been the strength of it for the most part, is suddenly dwindling a bit. Like, we don't have the story on Chris Bassett and how ready to go he is or isn't going to be. Barrios, whether you wanted him or not, is no longer an option. Scherzer's been getting smacked around for a while here. I tweeted out somewhat snarkily to circle all the way back after... Is snarkily a word? Did I just tweet it out snarky? I think it was snarkily. When he gave up 3 in the first inning on Wednesday, that was like, yeah, Trey Yesavich is going to see a playoff start for these Blue Jays. And, we're a day further down the track, and you just had a bullpen day that thankfully you won. But you also learned Barrios is going on the IL. I don't know. I still think Yesavich is going to start, but I kind of think at some point you're going to have to start Scherzer. And that makes me a little uncomfortable. That is a problem for further down the road. As I pointed out off the top of this edition of the show, when you hear from Rob and I on Monday, it will have been pre-recorded, and it's all hockey. So we will not be commenting, because I'm out of town this weekend, on what happened. So I may be rushing back into town on Monday morning with only hours to go before the Blue Jays are starting a wild card series, or they will have the whole week off, getting ready for a division series. But this Boston encounter this week, man, I don't know. Even this Thursday win, it came off as comfortable, and I guess it was. And look, when you've been scoring 2 runs or less, or 1 run or less every night for a couple of weeks, you'll take any 6-run outbreak you can find. But it all came on a couple of swings, right? Like a hit by pitch and a walk, and then a grand slam by Varsho. And thank you, man, for doing that. You end up getting another dinger out of it. It wasn't like the bats were alive all night and just coming around, and it was always, it didn't look like you were rolling all night like you would have wanted it to. And yet you got the runs. Watching this team makes you feel like you've got the runs. That's not what I meant. You got the runs you needed to get tonight. But it wasn't in a very convincing way for me. And again, the bullpen, for the most part, throughout the evening, was very good. I mentioned Varlin getting the start, Lauer getting 10 straight outs. That was really good. Fisher, not overly encouraging. And Hoffman, in the 9th, when you bring him in, loads the bases. And he gets out of it. Like, he doesn't allow a run, But it wasn't convincing again. And so, look, at this point in the year, you take the wins however you can get them, especially when you've lost 6 of 7 or whatever the hell it's been. 6 of 8 now after the win Sunday and the win tonight. And you're in a really good spot still. You own your own destiny. Like I said a few minutes ago, match or beat whatever the Yankees do this weekend against the Orioles, and you will have all next week off to sort it out. Hey, does Hoffman just need some rest? Great. Got news for you, man. You got 3-4 days. Just go sit down and rest. Drop that shoulder into an ice bath and wait it out. Whatever this looks like. But this last week has put you into a bit of a speed wobble, and the Yankees are right there. The big, bad, evil empire is staring down. Like I said, the Orioles, as much as we look at the way the Rays play us, and, you know, we got Tampa this weekend, and how that's often a thorn in your ass, the Orioles are throwing their 3 best pitchers. So how much do they care? What are they putting into it? How long do those guys stay in? Like, they're just riding out the season, but so are the Rays. Both teams in similar situations. You still have the inside track. But you had an opportunity coming into this week to just put this away and not have this weekend matter. Get everybody, an inning here to get a little rest, set things up the way you wanted to going into the ALDS. No, you're going to fight for it now, right down to the end. And that's entertaining baseball, but that's stressful baseball. And I was not really looking for more stressful baseball because I think October will provide enough of that. But they did pull this one out of the fire. They did put up 6 runs. I know I sort of alluded to that a minute ago and how, I don't know, beggars can't be choosers, but they didn't do it how I wanted them to do it. This is not a power team. It hasn't been all year. It is a produce runs team, right? Get on any way you can, find a way around, pinch run here, steal a base there. This was sort of one really good swing of the bat, and it put the game away. And you'll take it, but I'm not sure it convinces me that this Blue Jays team right now is totally back to playing the way they want to play and the way we've watched them play basically since May 15th. So one of two things is going to happen. They're going to remember how to do it this weekend and win the division and then get rested up and host the ALDS. And not just the ALDS, it would also be the ALCS. If they get the bye here, they will have home field advantage through the entire American League side of the bracket, which would be really exciting. Or they won't remember how to do it, and they will be entering the wild card in, like I said, a speed wobble, and potentially against Boston, who's just seen your pitchers. Most likely, I guess it would be Boston if that's how this shakes loose. But a bunch of things that can still change. But thought we'd check back in here and just wrap up the week. And it wasn't a good week. You hope some of these bats are going to come alive. Like, even, I keep making it sound like I'm wrapping this up. Like, when Vladdy is coming up on Thursday night, he's having to sprint out these ground balls to first. And he's making it, and you can see there's a ton of effort there. But could you just hit one over the second baseman's head or something? Like, show me a little more power. Show me you're coming around. Show me something. I don't know. I don't feel good. I obviously feel better than I felt at 6:40 p.m. before this game when the Jays had lost 2 in a row to Boston. And now they've won one, and the Yankees have won as well. So, if nothing else, you've knocked one more day off the calendar where they can catch you. But I only feel better in the same amount that you knocked that day off the calendar. I didn't watch this game going, aha, there it is, we're back. Not sure we're back. This is going to be a difficult weekend. It's a weekend where I'm camping. Not sure what my access to good-looking baseball TV broadcasts will be. It might be me and Chris LaRue and Ben Schulman on the radio. And we'll see what that's going to look like when I get back. We'll either be rushing into a wild card series or putting our feet up and waiting on the ALDS. I will say this. Despite everything I've just said, feeling like they didn't show me much this week, they've still come out of it with that 1-game advantage on the Yankees. And I know they're tied, but you have the tiebreaker. So you do have a 1-game advantage on the Yankees. I have a feeling when I come home on Monday, the Jays will have, by the skin of their teeth, hung on to this. And you just hope they do it by winning 2 in a row here, Friday and Saturday against Tampa, and you don't have to start Gausman on Sunday. Because that'd be sweet. If you could just give that guy the total day off, total week off, and let him get ready to start an ALDS game. You don't want this to come down to Sunday, even if it has to, though. I do. With how bad this week has gone, I feel like we're going to come out of this okay. Adversity, right? It builds character. It builds strength. I'm going camping with my brother-in-law. Adversity, it builds strength. And it builds character. Pray for me, you guys. Pray for the Jays. Pray for me on a campsite with my brother-in-law. That's where we'll wrap this one up. Thank you so much for listening. And we will be back on Monday with Rob talking some NHL. And maybe later Monday with some baseball talk based on how this is all shaken loose. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend. Keep me in your prayers. We'll see you next week.
That's it. I cannot work under these conditions. If anybody wants me, I'll be downstairs at McDougal. Call the weekend guy. I don't care.